Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Limbus Company reaction. There were so many requests for this one that I figured I shouldn't wait any longer, so this is Hear the Pauper and Vow of Misery. These are both songs, like I said, so many people wanted me to get to this. It was even one of my executive producers on Patreon that wanted me to get to this, so it's like, you know what? Clearly, it's something I need to listen to, so without further ado, we got these songs. Let's go. Oh, ooh. Wait a minute. That's not just an organ, is it? Oh, that's either a different type of organ or it's actually like duetting with an accordion. Unique choice. That's pretty rare now. Everyone goes for the pipe organ. Just doing that. I think this might be a hybrid type of organ. That's pretty cool. Loving the waltz. It's so nice to listen to. I don't want to talk over this one. I love that the piano is like slightly detuned as well. It's not like a perfect pitch match. It makes it feel much more real. Man, matching it with those, like, the notes next to each other to, like, really make it sound wrong. It's really clever. Man, this whole thing is clever. And now where are we? My goodness. And then Hans Zimmer with the steel chair. God, the power of this section. I assume this is the Vow of Misery part of the song. I know it's two separate tracks, but this definitely is different enough. I think it's the second track when it got bigger. Do that again. Ah, I love that. Just in the one ear. Okay. All right. We evolving. Gotta appreciate stepping it up a little bit. God, they're really abusing that organ sound here. Just pulling out all the stops, just blasting all that sound. vibing with it. I'm a sucker for halftime. Just gonna fade out. Yeah, it is. Letting the piano stay. Ooh, and then it would just kind of loop back, wouldn't it? That's so cool, dude. Okay, there's so much to say on this one. Okay, so this is kind of funny because I just did a video on the key that this song is also in, F sharp minor. It was literally Intervalo 2 from Limbus company. You can't write this shit. But of course, the more fun part with this one is the choice of instrument this time around. As I was kind of mentioning, I wasn't sure if it was an accordion or a pipe organ. They sound very similar depending on what type of organ you use and what type of accordion you use. Chromatic accordions, which usually are more aligned with that like French sound that everyone thinks of when they hear of like a French accordion, that button accordion is exactly the sound that I'm hearing here. But I also am pretty sure I'm still hearing an organ, like there's too much body. So part of me feels like this may be an organ and an accordion playing at the same time, which could honestly be just a pipe organ, because some very high-end pipe organs do have the ability to trigger other instruments through the use of their sound channels. They're able to play those other instruments. Some of them have brass instruments hooked up to the general system of all the air being pulled through all the pipes, and they can play those as well. That's kind of part of why the whole pull out all the stops saying exists. If you didn't know that, now you do. So there's this whole thing here where it sounds like it's playing an accordion, but honestly it could just be a pipe organ, because I'm still getting a lot of that like low end rumble that honestly an accordion would not have just based on its size. The diaphragm is not large enough in order to create that much low end. But it could be just a bass rendition of these accordions, because those also exist. It can be really difficult at times to figure out what exactly is being used, because there are so many options out there and musicians are so creative in such different ways. The people who make these instruments utilize very similar like engineering to create them. Like the reason that a pipe organ exists and how that pushes all of its air through is very similar to the diaphragm of an accordion, just a large version of it. Or if you want to look at it this way, an accordion is a portable version of a pipe organ to an extent. All of this is just to say I can't really tell if it's one or the other or both. It can be extremely difficult to differentiate if you don't have it like in front of you visually. So I'm gonna go with it's probably a pipe organ just based on the low end, but utilizing some of those more accordion style pipings and reeds that are more popular for just the accordion. And as I mentioned earlier with the whole key situation being F sharp minor, which isn't that common of a key for at least the music I'm used to hearing, so that's pretty unique, and the fact that I hit it twice is strange.
But it's weird that it happened twice, right?
But I guess I already did an entire video explaining why I enjoy the use of this key and what makes it kind of tick and what's fun about it. So if you want to learn about that, I actually recommend going to the Intervalo 2 video if you haven't watched it yet, because I do all of that there, and it feels like I would just be retreading it since it was literally yesterday. But pretty much all of that lands more on the Hear the Pauper side of the song, whereas the Vow of Misery part of the song just takes all of that and scales it up, truly. Like I had mentioned, pulling out all the stops, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they did for this, and why I'm really leaning towards that pipe organ option, because the sound just gets so much more intense, and that's pretty characteristic of a like real pipe organ, not something that is triggered, not something that is sampled and utilized on a system like a computer or something. That sounds truly real, and I suppose you probably could mimic that well enough if you had good enough recordings and a very competent engineer to handle all that sound. But it feels like this was recorded on an actual pipe organ, which would be nuts but also really cool. So I'm not positive there either, but the scale of this, the absolute beef, the heft, this is a whole beef farm. This is every cow. This is so much beef. It has so much body and it sounds fantastic. That extra energy that comes with it, all of the drums being thrown in here too. I made the crack about it being like Hans Zimmer with the steel chair. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels out of nowhere, all of this energy is just thrown at you tenfold. You already had maybe been feeling this sort of like, oh, here we go. And you get this like high presence, like something is much more regal in your presence with this song. And this dancing flow of the waltz helps out with that a lot. It feels like you're in a ballroom. It feels like you're at an event in France dancing for the king and queen, you know, like that sort of sound. And then it just completely changes, like, oh, so now the king is murdering everyone and we need to leave. Like that's that's the energy I'm getting from this track, and all of that power, all of that intense, intimidating sound, that wall of tone that everything shifts to in the second part is really what sells this one. I love that evolution. The first part, gorgeous, flowy, and then changing the entire structure, the time signature, to just a 4/4, and then doubling in on that later to then halftime it again. It feels like there's something you need to get away from. There's definitely a heightened energy, a heightened sense of importance and presence and fear that comes with that, to then halftime it like, oh, now we're in the post of whatever that was, and maybe there's a few less people in the room. You know, like there's so much that you could glean from a song like this just based off the sound, and the energy and the presence does such an immense job carrying that through. It's so impressive to me. I love the way that this works out. I don't know what the backstory is for this, but I'm assuming it's supposed to be pretty much exactly that. Start to finish, you're kind of at a party, things aren't going too bad, you're like, oh, okay, so you're starting to get into it, and then something goes incredibly wrong. Maybe the person who's responsible for it is the person hosting the party, like a king or a vizier or something like that, and then everyone's starting to run, scream, and get out of there as fast as they can, if they can. There's battles happening, people are fighting, screaming, running, and then everything kind of levels out as the song comes to an end, and you're just like, oh, and this realization of what you just lived through is now complete. And that's so sick. I love that. This is a villain song, hands down. I can't imagine it being utilized for anything else. This has to be a boss fight or a villain theme in some way, shape, and form. It just has too much presence to be anything else. I am absolutely impressed at the sheer scale they were able to pull out of this one. And again, if that was a real pipe organ, sick choice. If it wasn't, brilliant engineering to be able to push that sound through, but I am almost positive this was an actual recording of a real pipe organ, because I can't imagine trying to synthesize that sheer power behind a pipe organ. It is something that you need to experience at least once in person in your own life if you haven't yet. Find the nearest pipe organ, be it a church or some other like old Gothic cathedral, something like that. Find one, be in the room with it while it gets played. It's such an insane thing to experience, and through my own personal experience, it is definitely one of those things you just do not forget. That shakiness in your core that you feel when the entirety of your body is vibrating to the tone of just tens of hundreds of maybe of pipes just going all at once. It is truly an experience to behold at least once in your lifetime. But anyway, thank you all so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, like I mentioned, go and watch the Intervalo 2 video, because that'll have a bunch more information on F sharp minor if you're interested in that. And otherwise, if you like this video and you want to follow me and support me for more in the future, you know how to do all that, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!